Everybody, it's Dr. Joe on this Wednesday evening. Hope all is well. And another Wealth Wednesday session. And today we're going to focus on top ways to find your next real estate property, your next real estate purchase. It's a common question that a lot of people have, a lot of concern that a lot of people have. So I wanted to kind of hit it, you know, straight away, and really focus on different strategies that you can have, that you can pursue in order to fund your next, or your future real estate deal. So that's what we're going to talk about here. Show me the money, and so on. So let's have a look. Well, again, hope everyone's well, and we have a lot to cover, and so I want to just get straight down to the topic at hand. So whether you're a new or a novice or a seasoned real estate investor, most investors agree that finding to purchase real estate, funding your deal is really important, really key, especially in today's environment, changing environment where interest rates are kind of fluctuating. Bank lending rates are bank lending terms and conditions are kind of changing as well. So it's kind of a very dynamic environment. So getting money, and banks are, and lenders are becoming a lot more tighter in terms of who they lend money to and how much. So you're going to need to develop a game plan if you intend to acquire properties, in this kind of current environment. So the question becomes, how can we fund our next purchases? And so today I'm going to kind of talk about 10 different ways. I'm going to talk about all cash, conventional loans, a term called delayed financing. We're going to talk about FHA loans, hard money loans. We're going to talk about private money loans, portfolio loans, seller owner financing, and home equity loans. And finally, we're going to talk about partnership loans. So that's the 10 we're going to cover today. And so one of the questions that I suppose, I need to bring up is really a key point, which is, do you intend to be rich or do you want to be wealthy? I know a lot of people kind of confuse the two. It takes time. And getting rich, what I mean by that is that rich people tend to have money. And then, you can get rich by having a good job. And but the problem is that if you stop working, then your income stream is probably going to stop as well. So wealthy is by owning assets, and preferably appreciating assets that go up in value and over time. And that's why I'm a big proponent of not just buying any rental property, but strategically buying in such a place, such areas whereby the rental increase, rental income will increase, but also the value of the property will increase over time. And therefore you have appreciating assets, which is more likely to make you wealthy because it's going to bring you residual income, money that's coming in every month and so forth. And that's essentially what my game plan was. You know the story, so I don't need to repeat it. But essentially, I started buying houses very early when I was in the US. I just kept on going through good times, bad times. I've made all the mistakes that most people have made, and I kind of developed a system, a formula that appears to work. At least it works for me. And it's based around acquiring properties in desirable areas where you can attract what I call tier one tenants. These are tenants that's more likely to pay you, take care of your property, pleasant to deal with, and hopefully stay a long time. And that's really the gist of what I do. And but obviously to do that, you're going to need to start building a portfolio. And so therefore the issue becomes, what are the different ways whereby you can start funding these property acquisitions that I'm talking about. So again, I gave you a little introduction earlier on of all the different 10 strategies we're going to talk about today. Each of those are in itself, topics that I could talk about in detail for an hour. But obviously we don't have an hour to cover all 10. We don't have an hour, so we have to cover all 10 within that hour. But maybe at another time I may just spend a session on each individual one and go a bit more detail. Okay, so with that said and done, let's get down to the different ways to fund the deals. The first one, obviously, is all cash, and all cash is obviously it's the nirvana, it's the king of all financing deals, and that's essentially is you got cash, not cash in a suitcase, but you got cash, and then you can acquire the property, in one go. Most people, unless you're in an area whereby it's relatively cheap, most places it's not possible to get financing, or you don't have enough cash to acquire these properties. Certainly in the DC area where we are, you're buying properties for $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, $800,000. So you don't have $800,000. Most people don't have $500,000, $700,000 floating around. But it is possible to borrow money in order to fund these deals. Even my deals, although I borrow money through different lenders, I still call it all cash. The reason why I say that is because I have minimal contingencies on my offers, and therefore I have no contingencies whatsoever. So I do my due diligence up front, check the place out, look at the condition of the property. Does it meet my criteria in terms of location, price point, condition? Does it have a basement? All those things which I'm interested in. If it does meet and I bring my contractor over there, check the place out, get an idea of the repairs. And once I do all that, then I feel pretty confident that, I can make an offer with minimal or zero contingencies. So essentially, it's almost all cash. So although I'm borrowing money from a lender, I state in there it's all cash because I don't have contingencies. So cash is by most sellers, that's the gold standard. That's what they want. There's no financing contingencies, no appraisal contingencies, no weasel clauses that the buyer can use to get out of the deal. It's quick, clean, no backs involved. And it's so if a lender had two choices, somebody who was making an all cash offer, maybe a slightly lower price, another person making an offer with financing or with contingencies, then many times the seller will probably go with a lower price or cash. That way they can get the deal done. So it's going to take you time to get to that position, but over time, I think it's something you may want to strive for, which is to feel confident in your due diligence, feel confident in the criteria that you have established, whereby if a deal comes, you can move quickly and make offers which have minimal contingencies. Now, if you're not comfortable, if you're just starting out, obviously you want ways to get out of the deal. But the reality is that in highly competitive markets, highly competitive environments, the more contingencies that you have, especially financing contingencies, then the less attractive you are, especially in a competitive type scenario, which is still competitive. I mean, I made offers recently and I was beaten out, and so although the market slowed down relative to about a year ago, it's still pretty hot. Primarily because its inventory is low. So anyway, so the point is that all cash is one way which you can fund your deals. And a little tidbit for that, or a little secret for that, is to try to minimize the number of contingencies, even though you have financing, whether it be hard money, commercial lenders, or residential or private money. The idea is to have as fewer contingencies as possible. Okay, the second way I want to talk about in terms of funding your next deal is using conventional mortgage. Conventional mortgages, essentially, the idea here is that you're going to get a loan, you're going to a bank or a lender, and the lender is going to borrow you 90%, 80%, and then you have to come up with the other 10 or 20% as down payment. Again, depending on the lender, some lenders require 25% down or even 30% down, which means that the amount of money that you need to come up with is going to be higher. So conventional mortgages, typically those guys, the good thing about them is that the interest rates are usually lower. They're the lowest interest rates, competitive interest rates. The terms are pretty generous. You can get financing in terms of 10-year, 15-year, 20-year, 30-year financing, fixed rate for that duration of time. And obviously, the longer you can, or the longer the loan term, the lower the payments are going to be, which is good, which means that, if you had a choice between a 15-year mortgage, for example, and a 30-year mortgage, the 30-year mortgage, because it's spread out over a longer period of time, the payments that you pay each month is going to be slightly less. Okay, so conventional mortgage is definitely a way to go. The only downside with 30%, and again, it's the good side about 30% financing and those kind of regular financing is that your payments are lower, relatively speaking. But the downside is that most of your payment, especially during the early years, is primarily interest. So if you have $1,000 payment, for example, probably 95% in the first few years is just paying off interest, which means that the actual principal pay down is quite small, unless you pay extra each month. That's the only downside of these longer term arrangements. But again, it does allow you to have reduced or smaller monthly payments, which then gives you more cash flow, which then allows you at least the potential to save more money, which you can then build your portfolio that way. So I'm fine with conventional mortgages. Typically, a lot of these lenders, they sell their loans onto what we call the secondary market, to like Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and that way the lenders get their money back and they can recycle the funds again. So again, the second form is conventional mortgage financing. Again, typically lenders are looking for your credit. They got credit score, your debt to income ratio. They're going to look at the after repair value or the value of the property, and a few other things. I think I said debt to income ratio. So they're looking for several things in order for you to qualify. And like all things, what I would do if you want to go down this route, which is very common, is to contact a conventional residential lender and find out what their qualification requirements are, what their terms are, and then make sure that you can start assembling the information that you need such that you can start qualifying for these loans. As I said before, it is a competitive environment, and so therefore you need to have your finances in place such that if a good deal comes in, you can move fast. Okay, so number 2 is the conventional mortgage funding your rental property. The third one, this one's a little creative, and I've never done this before, but I was reading about it, and it's called delayed financing for a conventional loan. Okay, delayed financing. That's essentially the gist here. And in this one, you are delaying the financing, as the title says, whereby you can refinance to get your money back in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, or whatever it is. Let me give you a backdrop. Many lenders, if you're doing the BRRRR strategy, which is the buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat. Yes. Okay. So if you are doing that strategy, many banks will not allow you to refinance, immediately. You have what we call a seasoning requirement. They want you to be on title for a certain period of time. It could be 90 days, it could be 6 months, it could be a year. So if you buy that property, you may not be able to refinance until the seasoning period has gone through. Okay, so you may have to wait before you can refinance again. So what the delayed financing strategy is a way to get around that. And again, I haven't done this before, but based on my research, it involves, first of all, you buy a house, you put it under contract like we do normally, and then you inform the lender that you are going to be ultimately refinancing with, that you'll be doing a quote unquote delayed financing. Okay, you're going to inform the lender, and you're also going to inform the title company that you'll also be doing a delayed financing. Everybody got me so far? So you've got a house under contract, and you inform the bank that you ultimately are going to refinance with, that you're going to do delayed financing, and also you're going to inform the title company that you're going to do delayed financing. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So then you're going to get quotes in terms of improvements to the house from contractors or whatever, and you want to make sure that the renovation work, the quotes that you're getting, is included in the HUD-1 of the acquisition when you purchase. Okay, so you now will then close on the property by paying all cash. So now technically there's no loan. You haven't got a loan on the house. It's all cash. And then you can then go for a refinance. And if the lender will allow you to do that, then you'll do the refinance, which will then allow you to replace your all cash with a new financing. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. So essentially, it's almost like a BRRRR, but you're buying the property with all cash in the get-go, so you don't have a loan on the house. And therefore, based on my research anyway, it then allows you to refinance, to replenish your cash with a new loan after 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, without any, without any seasoning requirements, because there is no loan on the house. It's all cash. Okay, so it's your house. You own it free and clear. And so essentially what you're doing a cash out refi. So that's what we call a delayed financing strategy. As I said before, I haven't done it before. I mean, it's very seldom I'm going to probably do that in this area where houses are $200,000, $300,000, $400,000. I don't just carry around $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 to buy houses all cash. But this is a way, especially if you're in a lower price market, to purchase and then recoup your money relatively quickly. Okay, so that's number 3. Again, we're going to do a Q&A towards the end of the session. So if you got some questions, please put them in the chat box, and I will try to answer them as we go through. So again, we've talked about 3 strategies so far. We've talked about all cash. We've talked about conventional financing, and we've talked about the delayed financing conventional loan. Number 3 is the FHA loans. FHA is the Federal Housing Administration, which is obviously part of the U.S. government. And essentially what they do, they guarantee the loans on behalf of banks. So you go to a bank, you get a loan for $100,000 using FHA financing, and essentially what that means is that the government is backing you. So essentially there's insurance. So if you default, then the lender will recoup their money, so they're not going to be out of pocket. Okay, so essentially what it is that the government's backing your loan. Okay, the good thing about FHA loans for especially new investors, well, not new investors because it's only for owner occupants. If you're beginning, is that the interest rates are low. It could be anywhere from 3.5%. So 3.5% down, which is much better than 10, 20% down that you'll have to pay on conventional loans. So if you have a house for $100,000, for example, then if you're getting FHA financing at 3.5% down, it means that you need to come up with $3,500 plus closing costs and things like that. Whereas if you came up with conventional financing at 20%, you'll have to come up with $20,000, 20%. Okay, so the good thing is that it allows you to get in without a whole lot of money. Now, the downside, obviously, is that it's only available for owner occupants. which is okay. So you could buy it, stay there for a year or so, and then potentially sell the house or refinance the house into a conventional financing, and then do it again and again and again and again. So you need to be in there, I think, for at least a year, so that way you don't run foul of the rules that FHA has, which is that it's just only for owner occupants. So you should live there and for a year, and then you could then sell the property or refinance and take it out of the FHA and then put it into a conventional finance, which then frees up your FHA slot for you to buy another one. And then you can rinse and repeat and do it again. So that's a strategy that a lot of people use to get onto the to start acquiring a portfolio of properties. The good thing also is that you can use that for as part of the house hack strategy. So you could buy duplexes, you could buy triplexes, 4-unit buildings. You can live in one and then rent out the other 1, 2, or 3. So again, you are now you're living there still, so still owner occupant, but also you're reducing your monthly housing expenses because you are house hacking essentially, and you're getting income from the other people. That's the strategy which I used when I first started. I bought a house, and at that time it wasn't called house hacking. I don't know what it was called. I didn't think it had a name. All I knew was that I didn't want to pay my mortgage, and I wanted to drive my housing costs down. And so I would buy a house, rent out part of that space. And I think the first house I bought, second house I bought, sorry, I rented the basement out, and it had 3 bedrooms upstairs. I rented 2 bedrooms out, and I lived in one of them. So essentially, crazy thing was that I was making money from that house. So if my mortgage, let's say for argument's sake, was $1,000, my rent was like $1,200. So I lived there for free. And on top of that, I was making $200 a month. So I was able to save my $1,000 a month housing cost, and essentially save that money, and then over time build reserves so I can then buy another property. And I just kept on going through that process. So I was doing house hacking before the term house hacking was coined up by Brandon Turner. But it's a very good strategy, because if you can't control your housing expenses, it's very difficult to save money. For most people, housing expenses 20, 30, 40, 50% of their total income. So there's got to be a way to drive that down. Otherwise, you just can't save money. And house hacking is a great way to do that, especially if you can get an FHA loan, whereby you don't need much to get into the property. And and therefore you can get in, and then you can start generating income, and also you now have an asset. So I think you're allowed up to 4 loans before you cannot use FHA. So what that means is that you buy a house, stay there for a year, and then refinance it, and then buy another one, move in there, stay there another year, refinance it, buy another one, stay there for a year. You can do up to 4 times, I think. Again, I could be wrong, but I think it's up to 4 loans that you're allowed before you reach the cap for FHA. So again, it's FHA. You do, the downside is that you do have what we call a PMI, private mortgage insurance. It can be kind of high. So essentially what you're doing, you're paying insurance policy to protect the government, ultimately, so that in the event of a default, that's the money set aside for the insurance policy. So you can, I think, I could be wrong here, the PMI must stay in place until at least you got 20% equity. And then once you have 20% equity above that, you can either refinance, get rid of that loan, and therefore avoid paying PMI, or you may petition the lender to remove the PMI. I'm not even sure if that's even possible now, but I know at one time you could do that. But I could be wrong again. I think nowadays the PMI is permanent. It stays there, while you were there. But there's a possibility you could petition the lender to remove it, after an equity position of 20% or higher is created. Okay, so that's number 4, which is a FHA loan. And number 5 is portfolio lenders. This is an interesting one. I've used portfolio lenders in the DC areas, quite a few of them. And what this is that, remember I mentioned that for conventional lenders, most of the lenders sell their loans to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. So they sell the loan to those big government GSAs, they call them, government sponsored agencies, I think they call it, and which then allows the bank to then get their money back so they can create a new loan again for somebody else. Okay, so portfolio lenders, they don't sell their loans to Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and so on. They keep the money in-house. They keep the loans on their books. And so the good thing about that is that because it's their money, they usually have a bit more flexibility in terms of the terms and conditions of their money. So I like that. So you can develop relationships with lenders, and they can understand what you're trying to do. And because it's their money, some banks and some credit unions have these portfolio loans. Therefore, they're a bit more flexible compared to the Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, where you've got to fit into a certain bucket. Your debt to income ratio has got to be a certain way. Your credit score has got to be a certain number. All the documents have to be a certain way. And, your debt to income ratio has to be a certain. I mean, there's lots of requirements that Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac has that you must meet. Whereas for portfolio lenders, because it's their money and they're not selling it to the secondary market, they have a bit more flexibility in terms of their terms and conditions. That's what I like about them. Now the question becomes, where do you find these portfolio lenders? Word of mouth. You can do an internet search. You can call the banks and ask them if they keep the loans in house or not. So I mean, they're out there. You're gonna have to. Usually there are smaller banks, smaller credit unions, as opposed to the big banks, big credit unions. So that could be something that you may want to check into to find out portfolio lenders in your area, wherever you are located. Okay, so we're on number 5. So let's just recap on the 5 so far. We talked about all cash. That's the gold standard. But again, most people don't have all cash, so the best thing to do is to try to limit the number of contingencies on your money. Number 2 is conventional mortgages. These are typically sold to like Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae type organizations. That's a good way. Typically, you're going to need 10, 20% down. Some lenders even more than that. That's a way where you can fund your next transaction. Delayed financing. I talked about that strategy, whereby you buy the house for all cash, make sure it's on the HUD one, and then once the work is done, you then refinance and get your money back and then recycle again. Number 4 we talked about was FHA loans. The good thing about FHA is that the interest rates are lower. Not interest rates, sorry. The down payments are lower. Which allows you to get into the property, a little bit with less money, out of pocket. And the good thing is that if you are because it requires less money, then you can, get into the house, live there, rent part of the space. If, for instance, if you're doing a house hacking strategy, and therefore, start building a portfolio because you need less money down. You stay there for a year and you refinance, and then you buy another property with FHA, and then do it again, and so on. So that's a good strategy. And then number 5, we talked about portfolio lenders. These are lenders that don't sell the loans, but they keep it in-house. and therefore they're a bit more flexible in terms of their terms and conditions. Okay, so again, towards the end of the session today, we're going to have to go to the Q&A session. So if you've got some questions for me, please put them in the chat box, and I will try to get to them in probably about 10-15 minutes from now. So all your real estate questions, I'll try my best to answer them in today's session here. Hopefully this is informative. Hopefully this is helpful. Give me some feedback. Let me know how I'm doing. And also, if you got an idea of a topic for a future Wealth Wednesday, feel free to put it in the chat box, or feel free to shoot me an email and give me your thoughts on what would be a good topic that you think you'd find interesting, and also you think the audience would find interesting as well. Okay, so put your questions in the chat box, and I'll get to them shortly. Number 6 is owner financing, or sometimes they call it seller financing. Now, this is a creative way. I can't say that I'm an expert in this area, but I know it's a popular strategy that some people use. And that essentially, it means is that the homeowner, the seller, is the one, essentially it becomes the bank. So they're the ones who are going to be lending you the money, i.e. allowing you to avoid going out to get new financing. Okay, so the good thing about that is that you don't have to make a loan application. The good thing about that is also that you can negotiate with the seller on the terms and conditions, whether it be the down payment requirements, the interest rate, the terms, the balloon, if there's a balloon payment, other requirements that you can, it's all negotiable. And, so it's definitely worthwhile to explore. Now, in reality, most lenders, most sellers, they're not going to, they just want their money. They don't want to be, borrowing you money from their equity and so on. So I know a lot of gurus tell you it's easy to get seller financing. I haven't had as much success as what they have. So I'm not going to say that I'm an expert, but I know it's out there. It's a creative strategy. And there are some sellers, especially if they got sellers that own a property free and clear. And if they were to sell to you, then they would incur quite a sizable capital gains tax. So this is the way whereby they can reduce their tax obligation by selling you the house and taking back the financing and so on. So that's another strategy that some people use. So most of the times you want to do seller financing when a seller does not have a mortgage, so they own it free and clear. But if they have a mortgage, then there's a way whereby we call it subject to. That's a whole nother discussion. I may do that a session on that, whereby you take over their existing financing, you take over their existing payments, and you continue the mortgage. Technically, there is a risk because the bank could exercise what they call a due on sale clause and call in the loan. I mean, I've done several of these subject twos over the years. It's been my experience that the banks don't really care as long as the payments are being made. So as long as you pay the mortgage, most of the times, every month without delay, most of the times, my experience is that most lenders aren't going to exercise what they call the due on sale clause, where they can call the loan due. But there is a risk, by you taking on the loan. Now, the good thing is that, especially these days, there's quite a lot of low interest rate loans out there. In the last 3 or 4 years, interest rates have been quite low, especially during COVID. So there are some loans out here which are very low interest rates, especially compared to today's interest rates. And therefore, you may be able to take on some of those loans, through the subject to strategy. So, so that's seller financing. The good thing is that it's clean. It's a discussion between you and the seller, whatever you negotiate. And then you just buy the house and just keep going. Again, I've done several subject twos over the years, and it's allowed me to acquire some properties without taking on or getting new loans. I just took over existing financing, existing loans. I paid the seller something for their equity, and just took over the loan from there. So that's number 6, owner financing. Number 7 is hard money loans. Now, we all know about hard money. I know when I first started, hard money was, the rates were high, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19%, 3, 4, 5, 6 points. That's many years ago. Nowadays, hard money is, a lot more reasonable. You get 10, 11%, 12% loans, 1, 2, 3 points. So it's a lot more, favorable now than it was many years ago. But hard money, essentially, you're borrowing money from either companies or individuals who are in the business of lending money. And there are many advantages to hard money lending. That includes things like the terms are usually, the qualification requirements are usually a bit more, they're less stringent than compared to banks. Some hard money lenders do not require credit reports, but again, I think most of them nowadays require you to have at least a certain minimum credit score. The good thing about it is speed. They can, they can close fast. I know I bought a house once in 3 days. And I got a loan from a hard money lender, which we closed in 3 days. So they can move fast. That's very difficult to get from a traditional lender, where it could be 15, 20, 30, 40, 45 days, 60 days. So the speed. So if it's a deal there where time is of the essence, hard money is definitely something you may want to consider. The loan is based on the value of the property and the after repair value. And you can also sort of finance the rehab. That's another positive thing about hard money loans. The downside is that they're short term, so typically 6 months to a year or two. The interest rates are higher compared to conventional financing or traditional lenders, and there's usually a bit more fees tacked onto these loans. That's another downside of these loans. There tend to be a lot of hidden costs buried in this fine print, and so on. So, but make sure if you're going to do a hard money that you have multiple exit strategies. If you got a high interest rate loan, you don't want to be saddled with that thing. So you want to make sure that you have a plan A and a plan B just in case. So if you're trying to sell the house, make sure that you can rent it if you have to, just in case you can't sell, and vice versa. So a typical strategy that a lot of people use for hard money is to fix and sell. So they buy it, fix it up, and then they sell, or they buy it, fix it up, and then refinance, replace the short-term hard money loan with new permanent financing. So, permanent financing, which is longer term, maybe 10, 15, 20 years at a lower interest rate. Okay, so the hard money is primarily used as short-term financing. It allows you to get into the game and acquire the property, renovate the property, and then get out. The question becomes, where are these hard money lenders? You can find different places. They could be, you can go to the RIA meeting, the local RIAs. You can go on the internet search, speak to other investors, but there's quite a few of them out there. Okay, I think 7:40. I'm going to have to try to brush this up a little bit. Private money, that's number 8. Private money is really, it's a strategy which I use now. I was very intimidated by private money when I first started, but I'm very, very comfortable. It's all about, borrowing money from people that know you. And your reputation, your integrity, your experience is really, really important. These are individuals. These aren't in the business of lending money. It could be friends, family, associates, co-workers, roommates. It could be anybody. Just people that know you, and they trust you. They feel that you're going to do the right thing and return the money back to them. And that's the key. And these are people who are looking for a better return on their money as opposed to what they can get in the savings account. So if you're able to convince them that you are a person of integrity, that you will do the right thing, and you're going to protect their hard-earned money, then that's a strategy that's definitely something that you may want to pursue. That's a whole, I mean, I have a very, very, I think, creative way of getting private money. And, it works for me. And maybe I'll do another session on that another time. But when I first started going into private money, I read some of these gurus. They just said, hey, rent a hall somewhere or rent a restaurant and, put a PowerPoint presentation and somehow people will miraculously start giving you money. That didn't work for me. I don't believe that. So it didn't work for me. So I had to do a different way, which maybe I can talk about in another session. But essentially, the terms are negotiable. Is what it is that you can negotiate with your lenders. And, the terms, the interest rates, and all those different kind of things. So I think that it's a good strategy for you to consider. And you may want to start doing that now. Start planting the seeds now, letting people know who you are, what you do, and let them know that you're an investor. You let them know that you have the ability to generate a better return than what they're currently getting. And they can generate residual income by borrowing you the money more so than they can, through, let's say, a savings account or checking account or whatever it is. And you're a man of your word or a woman of your word, and you'll do the right thing and return them the money as agreed. So, but again, that's a whole nother discussion. Maybe I'll do one session. Let me know if you think I should do a session just on hard money. Okay, number 9, home equity lines of credit, HELOCs. This is a good strategy. If you got equity in a house, then the idea is to tap into that equity. I would say it's what I call convert dead equity into living equity. So you tap into that dead equity that you may have in the house, get a loan or a line of credit, and then using that line of credit or that loan to then acquire more properties. I'm not using it to buy, a nice car or nice clothes. No, you're using that to buy appreciating assets, another property. And that's exactly what I did. So as I recall before, I saved money. I bought a house, implemented the house hack strategy. Over time, the equity started building up on the houses. I then tapped into the equity of the house, got a line of credit, and then bought another house. So one house, I've been able to recycle the funds where I can buy multiple houses from that one house. So that equity, which otherwise would be dead, quote unquote, just sitting there looking good on a piece of paper, is now working for me in terms of trying to acquire new properties. That's an excellent strategy. There's a HELOC. Also, you can get, just a second loan on the house as well. But that's not a second loan, as opposed, the HELOC is like a revolving loan. It's like a credit card. You can tap into it whenever you want it, pay it off whenever you want. Sometimes you can get what we call a second deed and just get a second loan based on the equity in the house, and then use that loan to then start acquiring properties. I like HELOCs, but not all banks, not all lenders do HELOCs, but you may want to shop around. But the idea is that you got equity in your home and you want to tap into that equity to acquire more properties so you can build wealth faster rather than having to save your money all yourself. And then finally, quick mention to partnerships. That's a way to fund your deals. The idea here is that you may not have all the money, but there are people who do have money. And so you partner with them, make sure that it's a good fit. They have the right personality, they have the right ethics, integrity, and you're bringing something to the table, which is possibly the experience, the knowledge, the know-how to do a deal, and they're bringing money. And so that way you're able to acquire properties, acquire deals, by leveraging somebody else's money, and i.e. a private investor or a partner. And then you have to negotiate the terms of the partnerships. It could be 50-50, it could be 60-40, 30-70, whatever it is. But the idea is that you agree. The main difference, though, is that they have equity position in your house. They're not just typically what we call debt lenders. They have a stake in the a stake in the property, so they get a piece of the action. So it's not all yours. Like, for instance, if you go to a bank, the bank is what we call a debt lender. So you just pay them the loan back. It's 100% your house. With a partnership, you are now not 100% owner, but it could be 50-50, 60-40, or whatever it is. That's the main difference. I am not a great fan of partnerships, not because they're bad. It's just I just haven't had very good experience with them. So if you are going to go into this partnership route, make sure you know your partner. Make sure you take the time. It's a relationship. It's almost like a marriage. You don't want to marry anybody. You want to take your time, make sure you marry the right person. Otherwise, it could be a very unpleasant experience. So, but how if you marry the right person, it's a great because you both are swimming in the same direction, and you can accomplish more than you could have accomplished if you're doing it by yourself. So also it allows you to scale a lot faster than if you're trying to do all this without partners. So again, this is a strategy, a partnership where you can get money. And so putting it all together, I'm going to wrap it up since it's kind of getting late. Is hopefully this is good. Let me know, get me feedback. Let me know how you think today's session was. There are many different ways to finance and fund your deal. I've just shared with you 10 of them, and there are a lot more. And I couldn't go into as much detail on each one as I would like to have done because of time. But hopefully you can sort of pick a one or two, zero in on that one or two, become very, very comfortable with that one or two, drill down, understand it, and then use that strategy towards funding your deals. It's definitely doable. There's a lot of money out there. It's not easy to get, but it's definitely doable. And I think you can get the money. And but you have a choice. And but the bottom line is that you need to start building your portfolio. You need to get off the sidelines and get to acquiring properties. Because otherwise, we could have this conversation 6 months, a year from now, and you'll be complaining that I can't get money or there's no deals out there. There are deals out there. There's money out there. You just have to take action, associate yourself with the right people, and pull the trigger. You'll learn as you go, but you can leverage from other people's experiences. For instance, myself, be a regular tuner in to Wealth Wednesdays, and hopefully we will hit the jackpot, and I'll see you at the top. So that's it for today. So let's go down to some, if you got some questions, please put them in the chat box and I'll get to them. If you want to reach out to me, you can reach me at joe@joeasamoah.com, joe@joeasamoah.com. And I'm going to try to get as many of these questions as I can. I know we've got quite a few questions. Oh my goodness, we've got over 20 questions. So let's get down to it. Financial peace, yes, good one, Amifield. Yeah, that's what we want, financial peace. And financial peace means different things to different people. Peace of mind, yes, there's nothing like peace of mind. So I definitely am striving for that. Financial freedom, whereby your expenses is taken care of, to me anyway, by your passive income. You own enough assets which are generating passive income, whereby you can cover your expenses. And then to me, that's financial peace, financial freedom, as Kemi would say. And I think that's what we're all striving for. Good evening, Dr. Joe. Hey, Marlon. Hope you're doing well. And hope all is well on your side. Let me know how you're doing. All is well on my side. I'll be traveling, I think. Where am I going? I'm going to a wedding in a couple of months. About next month. Yes, next month. And then go to London the month after. So I'll be doing some traveling in the next few weeks. So I'm looking forward to that. James Amara, do I need to stay in the house for 1 year with FHA to House Act? Yes, I think technically you have to be there at least a year. Now, some people say, well, Dr. Joe, what if I buy in a different tax year? So, for example, if I buy my house in September, let's say, of 2023, and I stay there till March 2024. It's a different tax year. Now, some people have argued that as long as it's a different tax year, then you may be able to get away with it on FHA. So you may not have to stay there for a whole year. But my understanding is that you need to stay there for at least 12 months, in order for you to get another FHA, because FHA is for owner occupants. So you have to vouch that you intend to stay there as your primary residence. And the best way to do that is stay there for a year. And then you can then move out, rent that place, refinance, and what's it called? Replace that FHA with conventional finance, and then you can get another FHA based on your new primary residence. Okay, so good question, James. Good evening, Dr. Joe. James Nelson here with NPA. James Nelson. Hey, James, how you doing? I'm not sure. I forgot what NPA stands for. Refresh my memory, James. Goose. Okay. Hi, Goose. Yeah, hope you're doing well, James. Let's have a look. Ammerfield again. At what point will you start borrowing money to grow? Use your cash flow snowball to pay off one home at a time, zero leverage and max cash flow. It depends what phase you're in, Ammerfield. I believe that if you're early, it depends on your age as well, what stage of your investing career you're at. If you're in the early stages, what I call the growth stage, I don't believe in paying off your houses. I would rather, I think the example would be, would I rather have one house completely paid off that's worth $100,000? So I have $100,000 worth of equity, or would I rather take that $100,000 and buy 5 houses at 20% down? Okay, so I now have 5 houses. So I've spread that 100,000 over 5 houses by putting 20% down, but I've got a loan on 5 houses now, as opposed to one house free and clear. Personally, if you're in the growth phase, I would recommend that you buy, you take leverage, and you build a portfolio, and let time work for you. So now, if you have 5 houses, you got 5 houses working for you. You got 5 houses where you can take tax depreciation, tax benefits. You got 5 cash flows coming in. You got 5 appreciations potential. You got 5 pay downs of your loans. You got 5 equity that's built up. So there's a lot more with 5 than you can with 1. And I think that you'll reach financial independence a lot faster if you acquire a portfolio rather than having acquiring a portfolio through loans, rather than having free and clear properties, a few of them. That's just my personal opinion. But that's what I did, and that's what I do. That's what I recommend. Okay, so the snowball effect essentially is that you're building, you're having one house pay for the next house, and ultimately you'll end up with a bunch of free and clear properties. Again, there's nothing wrong with having free and clear properties. I just believe in I'd rather have a portfolio of properties, a larger number of properties with loans on them, as opposed to a fewer number of free and clear properties. Okay. Maya again. Do you have any information on how to connect with investors who partner with individuals interested in their TOPA rights to obtain a multifamily property they live in? Okay. This is a DC specific question. I think TOPA has Maya has another follow-up. My mother is a DC native who has lived in her building located in one of DC's prominent neighborhoods for the past 20 years. She has been the last tenant in the building for the past 10 years or so. Okay, let's keep going. Oh my goodness, got multi. Landlord has taken the property on and off the market over time. My mother has a great interest in exercising her TOPA rights and is a senior citizen who also runs a business at her home. Both the neighborhood and the property have promising futures, making a great grab for one of these huge developers around the city, and renovate and lease to a tier 1 condo. Okay, so that's a pretty detailed, very specific question. Do you have any information on how to connect with investors? TOPA, for those people who don't live in Washington, D.C., TOPA is a Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act. And, the way the law is in Washington, D.C. is that tenants have the first right of refusal if you're trying to sell the property, especially in multifamily. So you have to give them the first rights. And there are certain protections for tenants. And what Maya is suggesting is, do I know people, investors, who are interested in, in that whole concept of buying, properties by exercising the tenant's right of first refusal. It's a very specific one, Maya. I think we probably don't have enough time to go into much detail with this one. Maybe if it's okay with you, I would suggest that put together a question, and maybe I could have a topic. It could be on buying multifamily buildings and the pros and cons, and also what to do, if there are tenant rights and things like that. So if you can have that kind of question or topic, then I can maybe spend a whole session, Wealth Wednesday, where I can kind of drill through, and I think I'll be able to answer your question during that time. But we just don't have enough time. I've got a whole bunch of more questions which I have to get through in 2 minutes. DCC, it seems that the delayed financing approach is just the BRRRR approach. Yes. Does this not mean that the buy step number one needs to have real cash to pay for the entire fixed rate? Yes, exactly. So what we're saying there is that instead of on the delayed financing, which I think was number 4, you are buying the house for cash as opposed to taking a loan. And so typically on a BRRRR, you take a loan for the acquisition and the renovation, and then you would then refinance once the renovation is done. In this case, for the delayed financing, you put the loan, all the rehab information onto the HUD-1. So it's on the HUD-1 from the get-go, and then you're buying it for cash, and then you are now refinancing based on the loan that you've taken out or the amount of money that's in there, and so on. It's a strategy I haven't really utilized. I was just reading it, and it sounded kind of interesting, so I thought I'll throw it out there for you guys. But if you're interested in that, I would say do a search on the on delayed financing, and that'll get into more details a bit later on. Gentrification is okay. Maya again. Hi, Maya. Gentrification has made this part of town one of the most desirable. My mother is 67, accepts the reality of eventually losing her home to the city's changes. We have no. I would say, gentrification is rampant in many cities, especially in Washington, D.C. If you have the rights to a home in a gentrifying area, you don't want to give that up. You may be able to sell it or go into partnership with an investor, and because many times the developer will pay you to waive your TOPA rights, as they call it here, and that has some value. So I know at one time the people paying $10, $20, $30, $40, $50, $60,000 just to sign off on their TOPA rights. So I would say it's something. Your mother has something that's quite valuable, and it's something that you don't want to just give up very easily because you could be able to monetize it. Goose, how do you overcome the being fearful of private money? I was fearful at one time because I never did it before. I was scared that people are going to say no. But there's a lot of people out here with money. They're not going to advertise they have money. They just do. And it's their hard-earned money. So they're not just going to give it to you. You have to earn it. You have to demonstrate to them that you're a person of integrity. You're going to do the right thing and pay them back. And it's a relationship building exercise. So you have to nurture that relationship over a period of time. You don't want to start asking for private money when you've got a deal. You want to start developing that, start nurturing them, having those discussions way in advance, such that, when the time comes, they already know and they're comfortable with you, and then they're more likely to go with you. Okay. Okay, let's have a look. Keep going. Pace Morby says there is a deal on sale clause insurance product. Talking about subject twos. Subject twos, yes, there is technically the bank can call in the loan if the title changes hands. Again, my experience is that the banks don't really care. What they care about is the payments being made. So as long as the payments are being made, then for the most part, they're not going to exercise their deal on sale clause. But it is a possibility. And so I don't want to, I've done several subject to seller financing type transactions. And I haven't had a problem with them with a deal on sale. James and Mary again, can I negotiate with the seller by increasing the loan amount so the seller can help with the closing cost or rehab expenses? Yes. So what he's saying here, James, is that if you buy a house for, let's say $100,000, and let's have a look, $100,000, you agree on $100,000, and so you could have, let's say $100,000, you put 20% down, let's say 10% down. So you're going to get a loan for $90,000. You can agree to sell the house as long as it appraised for 105. So now the $5,000 extra that the seller's got is they can kick it back to you in terms of closing cost assistance. Now that can all work as long as your lender is okay with it, and so on. So that's another way. So you can increase the price. Also, if the value, the appraisal supports that as well. We have a lot of questions today. My goodness, it's 8:02 already. So I don't think. I've still got a bunch of. Oh my goodness, you guys have really been rolling the questions today. It's now 8:02. I'm gonna have to wrap it up because again, I want to keep it within an hour. I'm really appreciative that you guys came on. So for those people I didn't answer the questions, please, hold them, and then we're gonna go back next Wednesday, 7 p.m. and we'll do another Wealth Wednesday, and hopefully I can get back to you. If you have some suggestions in terms of topics for Wealth Wednesdays, please let me know. You can shoot me an email at joe@joeasamoah.com. My goal is to make these Wealth Wednesdays informative for you. Whether you're a new investor, whether you're intermediate, whether you're a novice, whether you're a seasoned investor. I've been doing this for a long time, over 35 years. So I have quite a lot of experience. And there aren't too many subjects I really can't talk about in real estate. I can talk about a lot of different things. So please shoot me an email, give me some suggestions on topics, and maybe we'll have a competition. In terms of what's it called? Maybe I'll do that next time. I'll have a little competition whereby the ones that give me the most interesting topics, maybe we'll do a one-on-one, 15, 30 minutes or so with me to answer all your real estate questions. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you had a good session. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful weekend and the rest of the week. Speak to you later. Bye for now.